We'll be starting with the hero, and just as kind of a precursor to diving into the story. In Dreamsongs, there's a little bit of a introduction where George is talking about what was going on in his life at his time, and he explains how the hero was actually the first story that he ended up selling. That it was actually the first one he did for money officially, and apparently he who else read this, by the way, just in case, it wasn't expected.
I did.
Okay, so you might be able to comment.
I didn't reread it.
Yeah, I read it the first time, but not.
It seems that the story was actually lost a few times or something. Like, it almost didn't get published.
Yeah, it's funny. I remember that it kept vanishing and then reappearing and then vanishing.
He had to call in, and during the call he managed to say the title and they found it. But he's like, if the call had gone differently, he might be a journalist today.
Was that the one that they found behind the cabinet or something?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He got lucky on that one. I love hearing stories like that. Can play such a role.
Yeah, and the other key thing of interest from this, and we'll discuss it during the story, is he actually, George was drafted to go to Vietnam, but he managed to get what is it?
Conscientious objector.
Objector status. Does that mean you don't have to go? You can just do volunteer work in the country instead?
What I know about it is that it was actually pretty hard to obtain. I'm impressed he managed it. And it was basically you are more you're a pacifist. So they'll find national service kind of jobs. A lot of people worked for forestry or the parks or whatever.
But he included the hero in his package, in his application for that. So, and it already has kind of Vietnam themes or kind of war themes, but the fact that he included it in his package, I think, is pretty important.
Yeah.
Okay, well, anyways, we're going to talk about the hero. Well, it's going to be a spoiler-full review. Does anybody want to summarize it briefly, though?
George doesn't trust officers.
George doesn't.
High officers.
Yeah.
High officers.
Field grade officers. Yeah.
You can definitely tell he wrote this when he was young. There's very much a vibe of it's just very I think it's an accurate mindset, but it's also one that's it's not as nuanced as some of his others.
Quick round of lemon cakes.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay.
Sure.
Well, while you give your score, you can give your impression. Yeah.
Okay. I gave it 4.75. I thought it was awesome. It's just so right off the bat, there's action, and you get such a clear picture of who this guy is and what he's about, and it's just really concise, and it's cool that this was the first story that he made money on because it's so short and sweet and just perfect. So I gave it 4.75.
This was probably my least favorite of the stories that we've done for this so far. I give it a 3 lemon cakes. It really was just really hitting you over the head with it. There, like you said, there really wasn't much subtlety to it. But I did enjoy the action sequences, and from the moment we met, he was going to visit the officer, and he was putting a tractor beam. I was like, okay, he's going to die, and the officer's going to kill him, or something's going to go down. It's pretty obvious what it was leading towards, and it didn't have I didn't like the ending as much because there was no surprise there. But I did you got some of the back stuff with the war and what was going on in the universe. But it's just my least favorite of the stories so far. But it definitely had the themes of, questioning your superiors and there needs to be trust between officers and their subordinates. And there just seems to be none in this army.
Sorry, I wasn't sure if we were going in the new order.
Me neither.
I think the new order is the old order.
Well, no, me and Lee switched is the only difference.
We did.
I would put it somewhere around 3.75 maybe. Sort of short and sweet. Not necessarily one of my favorites, but I definitely enjoyed it.
Cool, and I'll release the tractor beam and Lee so he can give his answer.
Sure.
I'd give it a 3.5. It's because it's short. I think that sort of makes up for the fact that it's not particularly complex. It's fun to read. It's never slow or anything. It's just it's also not particularly deep or insightful.
Yeah, I'd give it 3.5 out of 5, pretty much for the same reasons you said. I bump it up from 3, though, just because I think it's relevant, not just at the time, but during any war, even right now, when it shows a nation will take advantage of its military, but never really compensated in the end, just use it for the war, and then, so I think that it has an enduring relevance to any war time scenario.
Yeah.
All right, guys, I'll go down to like a 4.5, but but I do
You really
think
surprised me with that 4.7.
Oh, if you enjoyed it a lot, it's
Yeah,
fine.
me
It's
too.
personal.
well, I didn't.
lemon
The
cake.
funny thing is, I didn't enjoy it nearly as much as Mistfall, but I just thought afterward, I did think about it more than you would expect for such a short kind of little thing. And I just thought it was such, it showed his skill at just doing what he does, which, it wasn't beautiful and magical like the other one, but it was clear and concise. I guess I respect that.
Just glad the rest of you weren't on a panel like accepting his story or not, because then he'd be a journalist right now.
No, I mean, I would probably accept it. Like
You printed it.
it's short and yeah, it's like good, compelling, whatever. Especially from a young author, it's just like I don't know. Like I'm thinking of Second Kind of Loneliness right now, and like the difference between like the way that sort of captures some pretty powerful emotions, or the way like some stuff in the Song of Ice and like even on the similar pacifist topic, like the way Septon Maribald's monologue captures that in Feast for Crows is just so much stronger than this sort of short story about kind of crappy officers and primarily well-meaning fighting men.
Yeah, in any army, there's that divide between the officer class and the footmen, But in America, it's less so than in aristocratic Britain, where it was more the aristocrats were the officers and the basically the peasants were the footmen. But I like it. Kind of reminded me of Starship Troopers. I don't know if any read that the book, not the movie, where it basically starts off in the same way, where there's these like super soldiers jumping on this planet, killing these natives, and he's not questioning it, doesn't know why. And then as the story unfolds, it's the complete opposite, where like they're proud to be in the army, they're the driving force for good in the universe, where Kagan seems to be completely like just jaded and wants out. It's the opposite of Starship Troopers, where they're trying to join up. But it did remind me, just the setting and just the writing style, a little bit of Heinlein in that.
It makes sense.
Yeah, and this earned George $94. That was his first sale.
That's not
nice.
bad.
It's more than I've ever been paid for writing.
Yeah.
Wasn't bad for the time. He got his check. Okay, well, I guess we'll kind of just go through it. So, as you said at the start, he's part of an invasion force. And until it says Terran, you don't even know what's going on. If it's like, who's the aliens, who's the humans, really? Until it's like, oh, the Terran guys are...
Yeah, I thought that he was killing humans on Earth for the first part of it, because they seem to be like regular people with machine guns, and he's some like alien, super soldier.
Yeah. I mean, do we think that he's not killing humans?
He kills whatever is he's told to kill.
Well, sure. I'm saying I guess I don't know either. I just assumed that they were solidifying control over like an independent colony or something. But maybe that's not right.
No, I think they're probably. I think the humans are generally pretty united in George. In the George.
I guess maybe already.
In terms of comparison to Harangans. Although I did kind of get the feel of the Harangans Soviets for some reason. Because like it keeps talking about like we're not having direct conflict yet. We're just trying to like take all the intermediate areas first, and then before we get
at that point,
direct conflict, which fits the theme at the
taking
time.
over the buffers.
Yeah, and like you also, like these guys are super soldiers. You wouldn't really waste them on like military police kind of jobs.
The way he kept calling them, natives, I just kind of pictured almost like kind of
people in Avatar, like those natives of Avatar.
like sort of semi-alien, but like kind of humanoid alien.
Yeah, that sounds right.
I never doubted it. I always thought they were humans, because I don't know the whole history of the world that this is set in, but I kind of get the impression that humans have conquered a lot of planets, and then like Earth was solidified into this one government, and now that government's going out and like taking over those planets. So I always thought they were just killing humans. Well, that's based on very little information.
No, this is one of the first in the Martin verse, and what I remember about it is that so they're like the Harangans or whatever, and they're the humans, and they're both basically like big militaristic, conquering kind of people. And I think we were basically both just like doing our solo empire thing until we bumped into each other, and then it got kind of nasty. And then the federal Earth wins, partly because of soldiers like these dudes from Wellington. And the Harangans kind of vanish. The weird hive minds kind of vanish, but the rest of them sort of stay around. And our government collapses, and then like everything else takes place later over like as things sort of come together, but all these worlds are really different, and some of them are really advanced and some aren't, and you meet lots of new aliens.
Okay, so there are. Well, we know there's the Grishka and all those guys later on,
Yeah.
so I guess it makes sense.
But this is early in the war. It's only 3 decades in. I think it was
Yeah.
like 1,000-year war or something, right? So this is
Yeah, that sounds right.
Good job working the Grishka in there.
Oh, thank you. Someone had to do it.
He has to come up once an episode at least.
I did like how we at least have a little time. Like we know it's probably a couple hundred years from the current day because they mentioned like the fire wars of the 21st century and a couple generations have gone by. Like laser pistols are antiques in this society, but it's not like thousands and thousands of years in the future. It's probably a couple centuries, I think. I like my dates.
Finally getting the date set now for when it is.
Yeah.
His helmet. He takes his helmet off, I think, right? At the start because it's dented or
Yeah,
something.
because it's busted. Yeah.
Because George has this thing about people should wear their helmets unless they have a reason not to. But this one's busted, so he has to take it off. His sensory equipment is messed up.
I thought it was funny how, like, the first couple, little opening bits are about the alien sky and war, and he's just this lone guy out there, and it you kind of think, oh shit, he's in trouble, and he's just like, I'm gonna kill these guys, I'm gonna go back to my bed, I'm not even gonna take a shower, I'm just gonna take this synthestim and take a nap. Like, it was so quick.
It's just a job.
Yeah. Well, he's been doing it for a while. How long exactly has he been doing it?
20
years.
20 years.
Yeah.
Huh. Like
He wants to go to Earth now. Is the thing? He's not only retire, but he wants to go to Earth.
Yeah. Do you think they would have let him retire to Wellington? I guess they probably would have.
Yeah, they make that offer to him. So.
And they talk about the the retired guys that run the barrack, nursery kind of things. So
I thought it was interesting that mandatory service was just 20 years. Like, it sounds like a lifetime, but you figure these guys, that's what they're born and bred to do. He probably enlisted at 18 at the oldest. So he's not, they do have a point that he's, he may not be what he was, but he's still, I'm sure, got a good 10 years in him.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's sort of, I don't know. I feel like they sort of want everybody at their peak psychological efficiency also, and they try to, psychologically channel people towards wanting to stay in. But if you get somebody who doesn't, who wants to retire, then they're probably just as happy for them to go back to Wellington and run the training barracks or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like most of them do renew anyways. The ones that are in there, they're just so used to it. But he has different plans.
Yeah.
Oh, they have that drug that they're addicted to that they're using, and that's like banned on Earth.
Yeah. Well, that's a very like subtle part of the story. That's something I like. That's another way that the government sort of controls these guys.
Yeah, and Grady's kind of like taken aback when he's like, "Oh, I'll just shake that habit." He's like, "What? No, that's how we have you. What do you mean you're just going to shake that habit?"
So you have to be pinned down by a tractor beam if you want to see the superior officers. It's part of the protocol.
Yeah, like
that kind of
terrifying.
Oh, no, go ahead.
This story
how would it work? It doesn't make sense. Like, this army would be successful where the officers are terrified of the soldiers that they're in charge of. Like, do they even fight in the battles, or are they involved anyhow? It just didn't make sense.
I don't think the officers are involved at all in the fighting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's basically, it's not, and again, it's high officers, right? Like, it's not like the character's name, no, I can't remember, but he's an officer, he's just a field officer. It's just the higher guys who don't fight and aren't genetically whatever.
Yeah, I don't know, but he's only a major, so he's not even.
No, I'm not saying it's super high or anything. I'm just saying that, I know, like,
but Kagan is an officer. But they said like his insignia designated him as a field officer.
Exactly.
Like
Yeah.
In the field. Yeah.
Well, and it's funny. You wonder if they get the officers from Earth and then get the fighting people from Wellington.
That's what it looks like, right?
It makes you less sad that the Federal Empire falls because it's clearly like sort of Imperial Roman kind of a slave state sort of thing.
Yeah, I got a lot of connections to Rome. Just trying to think of just the way how they had, like, when Rome would conquer a people, they would then work those people into their armies as auxiliary units, and they would like send them in to do the dirty work and then mop up with the centurions sometimes. And a lot of times those generals would want to retire to Rome, but they kind of would always find ways for that not to happen or for them to meet an untimely end. And that's kind of like what Gladiator is based on, even though that's not based on an actual guy. They like combined 4 people to make him. But I'm always trying to make Roman connections, and there were some in here.
Mm-hmm. I would agree.
Sorry, I like Rome. That's my thing.
What is Federal Empire, right? Or what is the term?
It's like Federal Empire. Federated Earth. That's what it is.
Interesting.
It always makes me think of Futurama. But I don't think they're quite as competent.
So he tests Kagan's abilities by like going for his gun, and he almost managed to get him even with the tractor beams.
Yeah, he's intense. He's a tough dude. I'd like to see him take on the mountain.
I guess it depends on what the gravity would be.
No, I don't think there'd be any contest. I think the mountain would rock him pretty hard. Or, I mean, he'd rock the mountain pretty hard.
Yeah.
We just opened up a whole nother door of speculation with that.
Well, it depends if they're using swords or if they're actually just fighting hand to hand.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like it's not quite post-traumatic stress disorder, but just the way that he's so battle conditioned and how he wouldn't fit in Earth going back is kind of like a precursor for that.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting that, like, I bet they must have done a lot of psychological conditioning, and yet it makes you like him more and more the more you think about the story, is that he's so, like, fine. You know, like, he's like, yeah, I'll quit the habit, and I want to go to Earth, and the officer's just baffled by it.
Yeah, but I mean, just going for his gun makes him do this automatic reaction. Like, that means he could, like, do that on Earth when somebody just does something harmless, and he could just, like, have an automatic reaction.
True.
Well, and I kind of thought,
Sorry.
I thought he maybe, I kind of thought maybe he overestimated his ability to fit into society. Like, my picture of, okay, so what happens if he had been allowed to go to Earth? I think he would have, you know, he had his money from his military bonuses and whatever. I think he would have found a way to find the overpriced synthestem and, you know, just kind of turned into, you know, just made himself like cock of the walk. I can't think of but he would have tried to just take on a rock star persona and bulldozed everybody in his way. I kind of don't think that he would have just settled down and explored Earth and been happy. I think he probably would have wreaked havoc.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's sort of I guess, an interesting part of the story is that, like, the officer is probably right. Like, he's kind of too big for Earth.
Mm.
He's dangerous.
They don't want him there, basically. Like, they want a service, but they don't want him.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think that it's pretty, I mean, it's all but certain that if they let him just wander around on Earth that he'd, you know, wind up killing somebody, you know, or multiple people pretty quickly.
Well, it seems like the officer should have had a plan for this. Like, can't imagine he's the first guy who did his 20 years and wanted out. Like, there should be an option between killing him in space and having him just be like a drill instructor. There should be some place where they could send him that's kind of desirable. But maybe he's the first one that really just wanted to go to Earth, particularly.
I mean, if it is, how long? Did they'd only been going for
couple
not
decades.
That long?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So he could be
30 years.
You know, yeah. One of the very first people whoever did want to go back to Earth.
Although he did seem like there was the point when he's talking to Grady, where he's really trying to understand why won't you just go back to Wellington? And he gets that, you know, kind of, I don't remember what it was, but kind of a crazy look in his eyes, and then he just snaps out of it. Like it seemed like he already knew, okay, this is what we've got to do. If you're not going to do what we want you to do, you're dead. Like, I don't think he took that to, I mean, I'm sure he did take it to his higher ups, but he kind of seemed to already know the drill.
Yeah, the fact is he's a hero too, so they don't want him, like, if a hero retires and goes to Earth, they might inspire other people to do so as well. They don't want that precedent.
I guess that's a possibility, yeah.
So instead they want the hero to be, did they frame it like he's being killed by the Harangans, or is I just making that up?
Yeah.
I think,
that was like
the press
one of the
release
last
or whatever. Yeah.
So he gets killed by the tractor beams.
Yeah, that whole ending, just the last couple of paragraphs where you have his, you know, gruesome death scene, and then it goes back to Grady like it's just another day in the office, how he kind of was bored through the whole thing. That's probably the most powerful part of the story for me, where that's where Martin's saying the most about, you know, just the, you know, militaristic types and how it's just another day at the park, and they don't really think about the individual, you know, when it comes to what the wars they start.
Yeah, and how also, like, at a certain point, like, when you've done this for long enough, you just, like, you sort of lose that capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he shuddered a little, as if we'd ever let a war worlder loose on Earth, is the key.
Yeah.
They're not going to do that.
They sure did throw up a lot of pomp and circumstance, though. Like,
Yeah, for
getting,
retirement, that's pretty.
getting
Yeah.
everybody out there.
And I think that's, so one of their things, they like the soldiers to, be proud of what they are and what they do, and honoring retired, heroes and stuff like that as part of that.
Yeah.
Well, good. I mean, this story might have helped Martin get that status. Otherwise, he might have got to Vietnam. So
Yeah.
It's that important role. This story. He could be in the military right now, like a general instead of a writer.
Aw.
That would make me sad. I do not think he would have done well.
No.
No suspenders in the army.
Yeah, I think he probably would have done his 4 or 6 years as a clerk and then come back out.
if he got out. Right.
Well, yeah,
It's dangerous over there.
sure. I mean, depending on what kind of unit they put him in, I'm not sure that he would have necessarily wound up in a combat unit, or he could have been smart and joined the Air Force. So.
Well, good. That was the first one we're covering. Anything else, or can we move on?
I'm for moving on.
Yeah.
I'm fine. Yeah.